Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another 2024 election prediction. This time we're looking in the Senate map as of the month of September 2024. So I've changed my ratings on a few races here, but let's get into mainly the safe ones. So again, the safe states, they're not really competitive at all, so let's just keep going through these. Yeah, New Jersey is not going to be competitive. I mean, there's some internal polls that said it was decently close. Let's just take a look. But then again, those are like a million undecideds, 20% undecideds, 20% undecideds. All these right-leaning pollsters always have tons of undecideds because if you were to factor in all those undecideds, it would probably break to the Democrat like 3-1 or something like that. So New Jersey's safe blue. The Republicans did nominate an okay candidate, but he's still going to lose by over double digits. And Menendez isn't running as an independent, I believe. He's pretty much been convicted in the trial, so he has bigger fish to fry than trying to run for Congress. All right, let's keep on moving. Nebraska special's safe. A lot of these states are just straight up safe. West Virginia, Jim Justice basically has his Senate seat on lock, so he's easily going to re-election there. Now, looking at Nebraska, I'm going to be changing my rating on this, and here's why. We finally got a nonpartisan pollster to take a look at this race, Split Ticket Survey USA. I looked inside the pollster. Those undecideds are not Republicans. Like, the majority of them are independents and Democrats, compared to only like 18% Republicans are the undecideds in this. So Osborne actually has an actual path to winning here. And I read up on Osborne, and he does have the right ideology to make it competitive in the state of Nebraska. So he actually does have a shot. So all these polls here showing a decently close race. I really think it's possible he gets it to a likely R race. He is facing a bit of issues with money currently. This is just based off an old report. But the Democratic Party is not running a candidate here. They're just letting him run, similar to what they did in Utah Senate in 2022, where they actually made that race pretty close. It was only R plus 10. So I kind of see a similar thing happening here, like what happened in the Utah Senate race. I think this is a likely R race right now, and I think Deb Fischer, who's a very unknown senator, I actually think she's in some trouble here, facing someone that could actually make it competitive, what we're seeing in the early polls right now. So, again, I think Nebraska's Senate election is likely Republican right now because the candidate running against the Republican, he's not really super left-wing. He's fairly moderate on the issues, so he has a real shot here at making this a competitive race. So Nebraska's on the board now as a somewhat competitive race. I still think it's going to go Republican, but it's interesting to see that it's no longer safe Republican. It's not over 10%. So let's keep on going with the next few states. Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar is going to win by 20. There's no doubt about that. The Republican candidate there is a joke. He has no shot. In Virginia, Hung Kao, he's just getting outraised by a lot by Tim Kaine. And Kaine keeps leading him by over double digits here. And before Tim Kaine, he's a known overperformer from the presidential candidate, so I think he's easily going to win here by over 10% against Hung Kao. I don't really think he has a chance. Maryland's interesting. We did get a new poll out of Maryland, and it shows a 50-50 race. It shows the race tied at 46-46. So those undecideds here are very critical. Larry Hogan's winning a good amount of Democrats and independents that make this race decently close. But again, Maryland's a D+30 state. It's not a state that's really, it's tough for Republicans to win here. It's very hard. And I see these undecideds here. They're probably going to back also Brooks because they don't want Republicans controlling the Senate at the end of the day. It's still a very polarized state here. It's not purple where Larry Hogan would have a really good shot. But I'll keep my eye on this race. This could shift to lean blue. But for now, I'm going to keep it as likely blue. I think those undecideds mainly go for also Brooks here, and she wins by about 6 against Hogan. But the race has narrowed up a bit, in my opinion. Moving on to New Mexico, we actually have some few polls out here showing Nella Dominici actually making a race decently close. Some polls he's leading by over double digits. One poll 49 to 37. Another one shows him up by 10. I think these is a poll spot. Yeah, it's a right wing pollster. So I'm probably going to put this. She did raise quite a bit of money here, so she isn't getting terribly outraised here. But I'd put this race at about likely blue for now. I think he wins by about 8%, so I think he does about as well as Kamala Harris does, maybe a point or two better than her. Maybe he wins by about 9. I would put a 9% victory, I think, is about right with what I see right now. He could win by safe blue. So we're going to head to Arizona next. And Arizona, like, Kari Lake's campaign's pretty much imploding on itself. We got some devastating polls for her. A Fox News poll has Gallego up by 15. Another one has him up by 7, one up by 5, one up by 4. Even the Republican pollsters still can't get Lake even close to winning. So I think this race is pretty much close to over almost. I mean, she's getting outraised brutally in terms of fundraising, if we could find that. I think she's just getting destroyed, honestly. We can't even find the fundraising numbers. Oh, there we are. Yeah, he's spent a lot of money already. He still has 8 mil on hand. Let's check the Republicans. Yeah, she's not doing too well in the fundraising sides of things. She didn't even do that amazing in the primary, only won by about 14. So, again, she's running a terrible campaign. A lot of people in Arizona just kind of see her as a grifter and a sore loser after she didn't concede the governor's race. So I think we're looking at a likely blue race at this point in Arizona. She's just running a terrible campaign. That's all there is to say about that. And we're going to go to neighboring Nevada up next, because that's actually quite interesting as well. Sam Brown is still polling pretty much abysmally. He's also, I'm not sure he's doing too well in terms of fundraising. We got to take a look. Democratic fundraising. Let's see the Republicans. He's doing all right, but he's getting outraised by quite a bit. Again, Rosen's just leading him by double digits here. He's definitely underperforming Donald Trump, and I think the RNC is probably not going to write enough checks to Sam Brown at this point. I think they're going to focus on states like Michigan, where they could actually win, Ohio, Montana. They're going to focus on those 3 instead. I mean, when you're down by this much and the Democrats pretty much over 50% on average, I think this is a race that's not really winnable currently, and she has pretty much triple the amount of money that Sam Brown has, so he's not doing amazing in terms of fundraising. And it's probably going to get even worse for him. It's going to be tough to see how he bounces back from this. I would probably put this as a likely blue race as well, honestly. He's just not running a great campaign. He's getting outraised by a good amount. So, again, this race is kind of off the board for Republicans as well. The state of Florida, I still think Rick Scott's going to win here. He'll probably underperform Trump by a point or two, but it really wouldn't matter because Florida is still trending Republican. Texas, on the other hand, I think we're getting a closer race in Texas. So far, I think Trump wins Texas by about 5, and I think Ted Cruz underperforms Trump by about a point. So by a 0.1% margin. So I think Ted Cruz probably wins here by about 4. Activo isn't a real pollster, so I kind of just disregard them. They're just not good. Their sampling's terrible. The most recent poll we had that's actually a real pollster is Public Policy Polling, and they actually show a 2% race here. So I think this race is narrowing up a bit. I would even put it as lean Republican right now, because, again, Ted Cruz isn't likable. He's a pretty disliked politician, even in the state of Texas. Nearly lost to Beto O'Rourke back in 2018. So he's not the most liked guy in Texas. So I'm putting this as a lean Republican race. Moving on to the state of Pennsylvania, I think Bob Casey is in a pretty good spot to win re-election. Again, David McCormick, he's doing well in the terms of the fundraising side. He is getting a good amount of money on his side of the race. But so far, Bob McCormick has not led in a single poll yet, while Casey's frequently leading the polls. Even in Republican pollsters, he's leading by over 5 percentage points. So I think we could probably say that Casey's probably going to win by a likely blue margin. He'll do better than Fetterman did in 2022. McCormick's not the strongest candidate. He is an out-of-stater, and Pennsylvanians typically don't like out-of-state carpetbaggers come into this state to try to compete here. So I'm putting this as a likely blue race. Now we're down to the 4 competitive races. I guess I'll head to Wisconsin next. Again, there's a lot of polls that have come out here that shows Baldwin over 5% lead. Some polls show a bit of a closer race, like Emerson College only shows her up by a point, which is probably an outlier. Most of the other polls, she's leading by a pretty sizable amount. It's those undecideds, though, that keeps this race interesting. Again, she's only at 50.7%. There's a good amount of undecideds here. So for now, I'm putting this as a lean blue race. I used to have it as likely blue before. But I think this race could get to about like a 4% margin, which I think she wins by right now. The state of Michigan is up next, and we have a open Senate race here. This is probably the Republicans' 53rd seat in the Senate. Like, their best chances at winning one, I would say, like after Montana and Ohio. But against Slotkin, she's doing fairly well. She hasn't broken 50% yet, but that's because Mike Rogers is a decent candidate. He does have experience, which is good for the Republican candidate to have some experience here. I think he was a former House rep for Michigan. So he does have a pretty good shot here. Let's see how the fundraising. Mike Rogers, 2.5 mil in hand, and I think the Democratic side, Les Slotkin has tons of money. Yeah, she has tons. So let's just go down the polling here. So far, she isn't leading by over 50%, which makes this a more competitive race. But so far, I would put this as a lean blue race right now. I think Rogers has a good shot, but I think he's the underdog right now. Because Slotkin, she's able to win close campaigns. She served in a swing House district and won a few times. So she knows how to run a good campaign. We're going to head to Montana next. All Republicans need is Montana or Ohio right now. And Montana, it's not looking good for Jon Tester. On average, he's down by exactly 5% of the RCP average. But that's mainly since there's a lot of Republican pollsters polling this rate that are just giving Sheehy a pretty sizable lead. The one non-Republican pollster actually showed Jon Tester up by 5, which is interesting. Emerson College also shows Sheehy narrowly up. I think this is probably the most legit poll in Montana right now. I would probably say Sheehy is a narrow favorite, probably going to win by 2 to 3 points, as I see it right now. I think the Republican pollsters are exaggerating Sheehy's margin of him winning by over 5 currently. But for now, I would put Sheehy as a narrow favorite. It is in like an R plus 17 state from 2020. So it's a very tough environment for a Democrat to win in. It isn't like Ohio, which is only R plus 8, which is actually doable for a Democrat to win in. But for now, unless a scandal appears about Sheehy, Sheehy's still the current favorite to win in Montana's Senate race, thus giving Republicans 51 seats. Let's head to Ohio next, and Moreno has yet to lead in a single poll. He's been down in virtually every poll the entire time because he is the weakest candidate the Republicans could have ran. The other Republican candidates actually had a pretty good shot at beating Brown. They would be the slight favorites. But even the Republican pollsters say that Moreno is losing currently by about 4 or 5 points. So, again, I think it's important to note that the other pollsters here, even Remington Research, they have Sherrod Brown nearly at 50% in some of these polls. Marist also has him at 50%. So even if Moreno gets all these undecideds, it's still not enough to cover the distance here. Rasmussen says something different and says under 50, but there's a lot more undecideds in this poll than the other one done by Remington. But again, I do think Sherrod Brown's a narrow favorite here. I think it's not going to be a 5-point margin. I think it's more likely to be under 1% margin. And currently, Sherrod Brown's doing extremely well in terms of raising money. He's raised quite a bit here. So I would put him as a narrow favorite here. I do think incumbency advantage matters here. It's not like Vance versus Tim Ryan where it was an open Senate race. We actually have an incumbent in this race, and I do think there will be a fair amount of ticket splitting in Ohio, like we saw back in 2022, with the governor's race going like R plus 25 and the Senate race only going like R plus 7, which that's a lot of ticket splitting. But the state of Ohio I'd probably put as a tilt blue race as of right now. So we're looking at a 51 Republican Senate seat majority. That's pretty much where I see things going, and I think it's a pretty likely scenario. It's like a 70% chance Republicans take the Senate right now because of how bad a Senate map Democrats have. But they do have a lot of strong candidates. That's their one benefit here. But other than that, that's my current 2024 Senate map prediction for the month of September 2024. Let me know what you think of this map in the comments below, what states you would change, and what's your Senate prediction. I'm interested in hearing that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching. If you're new to this channel, I'd highly consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. Besides that, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.